It's just circling. Okay. Can you see the green screen at the bottom say you're live? Perfect. Okay. Right. So I'm going to switch off my video and audio. You're not going to hear me. You're not going to see me. So you're going to navigate yourself to your presentation and talk from start right to the end. And then when you finish, maybe just instead of close, maybe also what you can do, you can just talk at the end, just to close, with closing remarks and whatever, and then maybe wait for about 10 seconds, so that then at least we have a nice roundup of your presentation. And then once you're done, you let me know to say I am done and happy, and then I'll switch on my video, and then if need be, we can do a second take. But if you are happy, then that'll be it. Okay. All right.
So should I turn my screen share now? Should I go to my screen share?
Yes, please do that. Okay. Thank you.
Let's do the screen share so that things are done. I can start from the beginning. All right. I've started.
Okay, I can see your screen, and I can see you on the bottom right. So I'm going to switch off my audio, and now you can start once my audio is off. So I'm going to count you down. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Good day, colleagues. I hope you have a wonderful day today. My name is Mpine Makoe. I'm a Commonwealth of Learning Chair in Open Education Resources and Open Education Practices at the University of South Africa. Today, I'm going to speak to you about revisioning open education practices and resources. The reason that I'm talking about revisioning is about reimagining our own open education practices. And as I'm going to start with Alvin Toffler, one of the futurists, who wrote a book in 1970 about future shock, where he said the illiterate of the 21st century will not be those who cannot read and write, but those who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn. We are all involved in education, and part of our mission in education is to educate for the future. When someone walks into a classroom, we are educating them for the future that we hope for. We are not educating them for the present or the current. We are educating them for something that will happen in the future. So in South Africa, in our context, we are a developing country, and therefore the development agenda should be on top of it. And therefore we need also to follow the National Development Plan in order for us to address the needs of the country. Secondly, we educate people who are going to participate effectively in the economic growth of the country. And thirdly, which is something that we don't do much, is the social cohesion, the values that we want these people to walk away with. And it's something that probably we need to look at. Now, there are 3 underlying principles of education. We know that education is a human right, is a fundamental human right issue, and an enabling right. And living from context where lots of people are uneducated, we understand that those that have been educated, they are enabled in certain way. Education is a public good. We get our money in the education sector. We get our money from the public purse. So it's important that whatever that we produce with that money, it should serve the public, the citizens of the country. It also ensures equitable access to lifelong opportunities. So this is an important principles that I want us to have them in the back of our mind as I'm going to be talking to you about open education resources. I think the most important part is that we are involved in education because we are sharing knowledge, we are sharing information, we are sharing insights. And hence, all these things that we're sharing, they need to serve the citizens, they need to be about the public that we are working towards. Now, knowledge belongs to humanity. Knowledge is not an individual thing. And this is the starting point of the open education movement. The open education movement says that knowledge belongs to all of us. In the beginning, knowledge was perceived as a gift from God. And this is during the time of the public and tradition, oral tradition, where we have public lectures, all the people who are pushing the religious movements in the world, the Christian movement, the Muslim movement. They would go to the corners of the street, have public lectures, and the system that was used, people were mentored to become those orators of the past. The philosophers were orators of the past. Then knowledge moved into a space, a four-walled space, when universities were established in the Middle Ages. And that's the beginning of knowledge as a commodity. So those that could afford to get into universities, they were the ones who were able to pay for, those who could pay and get into universities were the only ones who had access to knowledge. So knowledge was beginning to be closed out from other people. Then Industrial Revolution came. And when that Industrial Revolution came, the rise of public education started, massification of access to knowledge. The factories needed people who are trained to work in factories. Even our assessment practices come from this era. The exams come from this era. And the standardization of education come from this era, where people have to produce the same things. So it was important that people are educated in a way that they can standardize, they can look at things the same way. Now, we are still holding on to some of these things that were handed down to us: the oral tradition, the commodifying of education, the massification of education. And now we are on the fourth industrial revolution that deals with the knowledge economy, that deals with the Internet of Things, where knowledge is no longer in the preserve of the few. Knowledge is now available to all and sundry. So we are moving from the ability to pay model, which is knowledge scarcity, to desire to learn model, knowledge abundance. And if you haven't seen this during COVID, you haven't been in the space of looking for information at all times. And I doubt if there's anyone who didn't realize the knowledge abundance that we had to deal with from social media. That's part of knowledge. It doesn't have to be formal. From social media, from the internet, from everywhere. Whatever you needed, if you wanted medication for something, you would press those buttons in the internet. So internet has made knowledge abundant, has made knowledge accessible to all and sundry. And it is during this time when open education resources and MOOCs, the need for them just rose exponentially. Many people were just going into these courses to see what could help them to move to an online space. Now, open education resources starts from there. I wanted to give you the background that open education resources may look like it's a new concept, but it started long ago. So we moved in an education sector from completely open right at the beginning to completely closed, and now we are going back to being completely open. Open educational resources are developed by academics like me and you. And these academics, they develop the material and they put the material out into the space where they could be accessed by whoever that they want to access it. But all this material has to be licensed. This material is licensed in such a way that you can share it, you can purpose it, you can repurpose it, you can copy it, you can use it as and when you want it. So this is a big move from getting textbooks that are licensed that you need to buy from a shop. And then once you bought those textbooks, you cannot copy it unless you get permission from the author of the book. So what open education says is that you do not have to get the permission from the author who needs you to write about it. And let me just give you an example, because I develop material for the University of South Africa where I teach. Now, I get a salary from the government to develop material. And then after I develop this book, I sell it to my students. So my students have to pay me back, and I get royalties from the book that I have published. So my students are paying me for the work that I'm doing. The government is paying me in order for me to service the citizens of South Africa, including my students. And then on top of that, I commercialize my book for my students to buy for it. So it's really double dipping of some sort. But this is where the whole thing is. And probably that's the reason why open education resources is not embraced as it should, because people are looking at it by like, there are a lot of people who, there's a lot of pushback on open education resources. Until such time, we insist that people have to use open education resources before prescribing a book, then we will see the movement moving forward. Now, there are different types of open education resources. There are tech content. You can use study guides. You can use images. You can use rubrics. You can use any of these things, worksheet. You just go online and Google commons licenses, and it will show you all the things that you can use. You can use it as software for creation and development, collaboration. You can use it for whatever you want to use it. It is freely available in an online space. And colleagues, let's use these things, because these things are there for us to be used. Now, I just want to say openness is not necessarily something that has not been there for a while. The movement, the open education movement, has been there for more than 20 years, but and it started from the libraries with open access initiative, where now when I publish a paper, I publish it in an open access journal for a purpose, because I do not want I want my work to be read openly. I want my work to be available to whoever wants to access it. So the library sector was the one that started the open access movement. In 2002, some of the universities in South Africa were signatories to the open access initiative. And then this was followed by the Berlin Open Access to Knowledge. Again, it was based on the research. It was part of the research aspect of it. Then the 2007 Education Declaration included other aspects of openness. It was starting with the openness of knowledge. Now it was also openness of the resources, the study material that we are using, the software, all the things that we are using. Then there was this declaration where many of the universities in South Africa signed it. So one of the open education declaration happened here in our soil. In 2009, the same open education declaration happened in Senegal. This was for the Francophone countries. Then in 2012, UNISA hosted the OER Regional Policy Forum for Africa. So, and in 2017, our government developed the Open Learning Framework. So openness, it's not what you do in your own little space. The DHET developed the Open Learning Framework to guide us, to guide the academics to move into the open space. The reason that we're doing that, we want to address the social justice mandate of education. If we can understand that education is also about a social justice mandate, mandates of equality, equitable access so that all people can be able to participate. I just want to draw your eyes on the two pictures in the middle. The one that talks about equality and equity. We live in a country where we think that everything is equal. And we have seen in reality that if you did not have the necessary habitus that allows you to move at the same level with another person who is not maybe the first higher education person in that neighborhood, let alone in their home. When they start in a higher education space, they are already disadvantaged. So it is upon us to have programs to enable people to get to a level where they are also empowered to participate actively. And if we do not have that, the reality is that those that have and those that already have some way of moving forward, those that had an opportunities in the past, those that comes from homes where they are supported, they already have moved much, much more forward. So our goal is to ensure that everybody has equitable access in order to enable social justice. Now, social justice, the reason that openness is central to social justice is the issues that we need to deal with. The dimensions of social justice is economics. For an example, the costs, how much it costs for a person to not only to register to study in a university, but they also have to buy books. They have they have to get all this information. They have to download information. They have to do a whole lot of things. So open education resources comes in handy in that regard. However, it can be accessible to many if also it's available in print-based. It's also available in other devices, like in your mobile devices, and students do not have to continually having to have access to connectivity in order for them to be able to download the material. It can happen once off where they can maybe save the material in a USB so that they can be able to just to visit it or to go back to it as and when they want it. The most important thing, again, which led to the 2050 fees must fall and the decolonization debate is the cultural justice. Is the curriculum open enough to enable other knowledges, other epistemic knowledges to be in the program? Is it when we teach our students in South Africa, can they see themselves? Can all their voices be accommodated in the open curriculum? I know that many scientists will tell you that science is science and there's no difference between one type of science and the other. But there's also science, the African science, that we need also to look at it as well. Then political justice is what I have talked about. The DHET has produced the open policy, the open framework, the open education framework that we could use to enable equitable access to all and sundry. And these are some of the things, and these are some of the things that we need to think about in our space. Digital justice speaks specifically about participation, the type of how do we participate in this space of the knowledge economy. If you don't have access to technologies, as we've just seen with COVID that has thrown people into mayhem, we realized all of a sudden that you need technologies in order for you to socialize, in order for you to communicate, in order for you to teach, to learn, all these things. So unless people have access to this, and this is where the government comes in, because connectivity is not the university story or the school story. It's also about government that needs to ensure that every person, irrespective of where they live, they have access to connectivity. They also have access to ICT infrastructure. that enables them to be able to use it. They also have access to devices. So we have we just have a lot of things that we need to think about as we are moving in this direction. There is this book about open educational resources that came out. Rory McGrail and Mishra from the Open University they developed this book that talks about policies, costs, and transformation. And if you can get, and this is it's an open access book, so you can download it as and when you want it, but just to see what is it that you can use open education resources for. And there are lots of benefits. It unlocks knowledge and information for the benefit of all, and that's the most important thing. And in South Africa, where we have huge numbers of people who want access into higher education, it is important for us not to spend a lot of time in certain areas and we move our practices to certain types of ways of doing things. Instead of teaching in a classroom every day, we can send resources, we can send rubrics so that students can begin to do assessment differently. So this basically calls for a different way of approaches. That's why we call it open pedagogy. It is not the same pedagogy that we are used to. And also the most important thing is the collaboration that institutions have to work together. There's no reason why every institution should have a curriculum for English 1. We need to come to an agreement. What does that English 1 look like? The first year English, what does it look like? And for who is it meant for? And all those things. So if we come together, we develop material together, and material comes, it can be accessed easily, then we will be freeing time to addressing certain issues of widening participation to ensure that those students who enter higher education actually graduate, because it's a waste of the public resources if we are able to open doors for people to walk in and yet they walk out on the other door. Now, I have mentioned all this because, first of all, we are in the knowledge economy. We are preparing people for the knowledge economy. We need to address that. So, first of all, we need to rethink the mission or the purpose of the university. Why do we have higher education, and for what purpose? And when you rethink, you remove your lenses from looking at what it was. You can look at what it was in terms of what is it that worked, and you take them forward. But it was very clear during COVID that a lot of things did not work, because when we're thrown into the knowledge economy, kicking and yelling and screaming, we couldn't cope with the knowledge economy. The second part is to redefine ourselves in relation to the social justice mandate. We are here because we want to make sure that all people have access to equitable, quality education. And quality education, when we define it, we need to define it in terms of the development agenda, and we also have to define it in terms of the social justice. Is it doing what it's supposed to be doing? Then that way we will be able to repurpose, to come up with workable solution that will help us to move forward. Colleagues, in the nutshell, education in the future is going to be open. It's already digital. We need to work on our collaborative ways of doing things, and it's no longer one person who has the power. It's going to be personalized. The students are going to begin to look at things that they want to do and things that they feel they do not want to do. We are not going to be prescriptive in the knowledge economy. There are too many skills that are needed. And then also, it's going to be diverse in terms of cultures, in terms of epistemic knowledge, and this is what our students are pushing us to do. So basically, we need to strive for an education system that is inclusive, equitable, accessible, and that enables parity of participation to achieve the education we want for South Africa, the education that will enable economic growth. So finally, and again going back to TOEFL, we have a moral responsibility, which is not to stop the future. We can't stop the future. We can't go back, but we can shape it to channel our destiny in humane directions to ease the trauma of transition. Colleagues, I think this is our moral responsibility to shape the future we want for South Africa. Thank you very much for listening. And I'm going to open this up for the conversation, and let's take this conversation forward. Thank you, colleagues.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're done. Hey, Shoo.
We're done. But I think you paced it well, and also you were flowing. So I really have no issues. Let me just check from our technical guys. All went well. Okay. Of course, when you see the recording, you know, the parts at the bottom, as you're moving around, you know, we don't get to see your full body, but I think it's not a train smash. I think it's okay, because then when it comes to Q&A, then people will see you in full view.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, no, it's fine. For me, I actually don't think that it should be perfect. I think it should be humane. Right. Because sometimes we thrive for this perfection. We are not on the TV screen or something like that. We can't do that. We are teachers, so we want people to also realize that it doesn't have to be perfect. I always tell my students that it doesn't have to be perfect. You can use your phone, you can use anything that you want to tape yourself if you want to do that. So it doesn't have to be perfect. That's my view, at least. Mistakes.
No, I appreciate that, because this phase it's really about you and making sure that we present the best of you to the audience. So if if you don't mind,
no, I don't mind.
Great.
I actually don't want to be perfect. Because when it's perfect, it looks like it's rehearsed and it's
yes,
you took so many,
yeah.
So you have taken so many what do they call it, takes and all those. No, this is not rehearsed, it's the classroom.
No, that was great. That was great.
Thank you
very much.
That I'm working and I'm very passionate about. That's why
I just also want to make sure. How do you pronounce your surname?
Makoe.
Makoe. Okay, because I've heard many versions, so I was like, let me just get it from you. Okay.
Yes. Yeah. Makoe. It's Mpine Makoe.
Makoe. All right. Got you. All right.
No, thank
you, Ma. It was a pleasure seeing you and meeting you. So just to give you a heads up as well, what we're going to be doing. I know you're speaking on the 9th.
Yes, the 9th is next week, isn't it?
Next week, Thursday. Okay. So what we're going to do is that maybe on the Wednesday afternoon, we're going to create a WhatsApp group of all the speakers. Really, if you're experiencing any challenges, let us know in advance. Okay. Also, what I'm going to do, we're going to prepare like a short, sort of like an invite for the speakers, because I'm going to need you to, so the webinar session series is 10 to 1, whereas the colloquium is 9 to 4. So what we're going to do for the webinar is that we're going to create a WhatsApp group for all the speakers, and we're going to ask you to get into the room maybe at about 9:30. And it's purely just a briefing session to meet the moderator. And if everybody's happy, if there are any issues with their connectivity, whatever that we need to, and you're going to stay in the room until we start the session. So I'm just asking for your indulgence that at least you're there half an hour before, and you will stay until the start of the conference. So we will also give you a running order of the day in terms of how things are going to flow, so at least you're aware what is going to be happening. Okay. But we'll communicate that via email, and if there's anything urgent, I will then send you a text message just to give you a heads up in what's going on. Okay.
No, I'm happy.
Thank you for your.
I'm very happy. No, thank you. Thank you very much. I'm happy. So you're going to send me the tape, or it's fine. I don't mind.
Okay, just to confirm, your surname is Makoe, correct?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Makoe. All right. Got you. Thank you so much, ma'am, and enjoy the rest of the day, and all the best for see you next week.
Thank you very much. Thank you. See you later then. Bye.
All right then. Bye-bye.